Welcome to the TNE podcast. In this interview, I chat with Efrat after the publication of her article in Bitcoin magazine on the digitization of money. I start by asking her about how she came to write the piece. It's self-inspired by a conversation between Mark Goodwin and Whitney Webb.
Since I started going down the money and then Bitcoin rabbit holes, I've been just exposed to more and more information that I think is vital to anyone in today's world in order to understand where we're going on a bigger zoomed out picture. Because people have a sense of detachment, not only from themselves, but detachment of the different events and scenarios that they're seeing unfolding in front of them in reality to the bigger systems that are actually designed to make all this happen. And when I go through my money journey and economics and finance and Bitcoin, I learn how everything ultimately is tied back into the financial system, the monetary system. And the fact that we are now on the brink of a dramatic change, as my article is titled, On the Brink of a Dramatic Change, I think that tying those pieces together for people and showing them how, for example, the climate agenda is tied into the financial agenda and how COVID was just probably a precursor to this economical crisis that is upon us, and just kind of tie everything in for people so that they don't feel lost, and that they can be empowered once they understand how everything works and where this is designed to take us, to then hopefully choose to step out of these systems, right? And as both you and I know, there is a way out there that can offer us some comfort and a very different way of life, which is Bitcoin. And so hopefully, for me, discovering Bitcoin was a ray of light. It was very refreshing. I couldn't even believe it when I first started learning about it, that this actually could be a valid solution to some of the problems that I know. And the more I learned, the more I validated for myself that it is a good, proper solution. And I am so excited by it. And so for me, writing this article and offering it to the Bitcoin magazine was almost like closing a loop, because if they would have accepted it, which they did, it means that it's like symbolic.
You've arrived. You're onto something.
Yeah, I'm on the right path. And so, I wrote about, just before I finished the article, I had almost everything written down, collecting and aggregating all the different information about CBDCs and where we are in the world. And then I watched the interview with Whitney Webb and Mark Goodwin, and I was blown away once again. And they added so much perspective and context to a lot of the things that I was seeing. So I decided to put that first in the article. And then I said, Mark is the editor of Bitcoin magazine. I may as well just approach him. So he said, wow, this is a really great article. And thanks for the shout out there. And and then Zero Hedge took it as well.
Oh, is that right? Oh, excellent. I wasn't aware of that.
With 10, I don't know if it's tens or hundreds of thousands of views already, because it's massive. So it's huge on.
Well, congratulations on that. That's excellent. Just in terms of the scene setting, for people who are watching this, the interview that you mentioned between Mark Goodwin and Whitney Webb, and her team, Unlimited Hangout, have been wonderful. And they were really the first team, I think, to expose this link between, if you like, a backdoor route into CBDCs using dollar stablecoins. And it's a fascinating story. And obviously, the team there go into such depth, and they follow all of the strands. And and Whitney has said in an interview in the past that, she only reports on stuff that's in the public domain. If you look hard enough for it, you'll find it. But But maybe you could just sort of recap on the angle of this dollar stablecoin link behind the scenes as a sort of stealth method of introducing
Right.
CBDCs.
Yeah, right. So, and you're right that Unlimited Hangout has some superb articles that go into a lot of details about um, stable coins and some of those, I gave an example here, XRP from Ripple. They talk about them in length as well. So I really recommend going there and checking it out. But basically, what Mark Goodwin was saying in the interview with Whitney is that we could see stable coins as the way in which the US is further globalizing the dollar, basically using stable coins as a method to spreading the adoptions directly to the world's general public, like a B2C instead of B2B. You know how dollars are always used to give loans to other countries. Now they're saying maybe stable coins are the B2C tactic of it. They're going direct to consumers in different countries, making them adapt stable coins because they are more stable, because they want an exposure to the dollar, like in Argentina, for example. And by doing that, they continue to increase the US debt and encourage uptake and usage of the dollar, which is basically what the US economy must continue doing. Otherwise, it will collapse, as we know. And so that's a very interesting take. He's mentioning that perhaps CBDCs are just a red herring. They may just be like a decoy to make us all fear from what's coming. It's not that CBDCs are not, risky and frightening. They are. Obviously, the design of the system and the capabilities are definitely worth noting and paying attention to. But he's saying maybe CBDCs are there to just like scare everyone and have their attention on them, while stable coins are used to create the continuous globalization of the dollar, with companies such as Tether, which, for example, in the last few years have acquired $100 billion in treasuries that this is in the top, if you put it up alongside nation states, this is in the top 20 nation states that are buying debt from the US.
Yeah, it's
So here you
astonishing,
have,
isn't it?
it's
Yeah.
astonishing. Here you have a crypto company, right, Tether, that has the USDT, right? USDT? I'm not wrong, not USDC, USDT
Mm.
stable coin. And they have $100 billion acquisitions of treasury bills from the US. So it's as if Tether has become another China or another Japan that have trillions of dollars in debt to the US. So that is a very convincing argument for me to see stablecoin companies, in parallel to nation states that will help in the fiat world, will help the US to increase its global debt and continue to be the global hegemony, the
Yeah,
global power.
absolutely. Yeah,
That's it in a nutshell, I think. Yeah.
yeah, and that whole link between Tether and the acquisition, as you say, of treasury bonds was a link that I wasn't even aware of.
Me neither.
And
Yeah.
and it's really quite astonishing, as you say, that. Oh, somebody asked me on Twitter the other day, what's the big deal about US debt? Because obviously they published a report the other day to say that it was at levels that we have never seen before, and we
Yes,
know this. It was 34
$34 trillion.
trillion or something.
34 trillions and growing by 1 trillion every 100 days.
Yeah, and they say that
And it
within
means
just a
that the
few.
Fed is printing money just to cover the interest for this.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the ultimate Ponzi scheme, really, isn't it? Um, And meanwhile, as you say, we were aware of the fact that they were printing money. They were auctioning bonds and auctioning those typically to banks, the bank network.
Sure.
But we weren't fully aware there was a cryptocurrency company in here, that most people have never heard of, buying hundreds of billions of dollars of debt. It's quite astonishing.
Yeah,
Now,
it's quite
to move
crazy.
on to another crypto company, namely Ripple. So how are they involved?
So Ripple has been doing fantastic work in the past few years in positioning itself as the ideal partner for governments and central banks for their CBDC projects. So you're a state, you're a nation state, you need to launch your CBDC pilot because, you know, Big Brother BIS said so, or the IMF or whoever, the World Bank, anyone that you listen to has said so, you need a CBDC project, then you can go on your own and try to develop a platform, or you can partner with us. We already have a dedicated solution for you, us meaning Ripple. The XRP platform and its blockchain is already ready for you as the ideal CBDC platform. And here we are, like, you know, people, that what kills me, like people still confuse, obviously, crypto with Bitcoins. Those that don't know what Bitcoin is and that don't go deep. And then they think that, you know, it's all bad and wrong and scary. And then you have companies like Ripple that add to that confusion because if they are partnering with governments and central banks, then obviously, you know, there's a reason to think that they may be nefarious. And why are you promoting interests of the establishment rather than helping the sovereignty of the individuals? And so I would understand why people get confused. And at the same time, and I don't know if you know that, but there is a pretty big group of the awakened community around the world, those freedom lovers around the world, that actually, I'm sorry that I'm saying that because this is not to disrespect anyone, but there is a conspiracy theory out there talking about the fact that Ripple or XRP, the coin, is going to save us all from a financial collapse. And when the new monetary system will come in, it's going to be called the QFS, the quantum financial system. What's going to be behind it are companies like Ripple. And so all those freedom lovers are buying XRP coins like crazy, believing that that's going to release them from serfdom. That's going to be the answer to all their problems. And they don't even know what money is and how money behaves. And when I ask them, so what's the big news here? I mean, what does XRP promise you that you don't have today with fiat? And they say, well, you will have abundance of XRP. I said, you have abundance of fiat. That's how fiat works. It's just you can print as
Abundance.
much as you want. Yeah, with Ripple, you can print as much XRP as you want. And yes, it's very cheap right now because it sucks, you know, because no one cares about it. And the fact that it's going to be worth more, you have other assets out there in the market that are much more valuable than this. So they essentially they don't know anything about money, and they fall into that trap of Ripple or XRP is going to be the savior, and the banks are going to be working for us in this new QFS future, this pink future. And it's like no one's coming to save you, mate. Like
Yeah,
just
it's
go
like
and learn about money. Seriously. And Ripple has done like 6 pilot projects already in 6 different countries: Georgia, Colombia, Montenegro, Hong Kong, blah, blah, blah. And it's written all in the article, the different advancements they made. They even got to the final stage of a hackathon. It's a G20 hackathon, right? The G20, the
oh,
establishment again. I mean, this is one of the more, these are the company that I would never trust. And when you buy XRP, it doesn't matter what kind of dream you were sold, you are basically strengthening the beast. You are making the beast more powerful because if XRP and Ripple is going to be the chosen solution for a lot of CBDCs projects around the world, then you're just helping that future come earlier and accelerate.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was very strange too, wasn't it, when President Millei was elected in Argentina? You know, there was lots and lots of people saying, "Oh, this is marvelous." You know, he loves Bitcoin and he's a big Bitcoin aficionado, and then he gets elected, and pretty much the first thing he announces is that he's going to move in the direction of the dollar. He's essentially going to adopt embrace the dollar. That was very fishy, wasn't it? You know, and of course that happening alongside a whole slew of Ripple-oriented CBDC pilots
Yes.
in various nations. What's happening in Israel, out of interest, by the way?
And then you saw him just in the last few days. Millei was announcing that they're going to start taxing crypto and Bitcoin in Argentina. And you know, I heard Max and Stacy talking about it yesterday, both saying, you know, this guy just simply doesn't get Bitcoin. The fact that he puts Bitcoin in the same basket with crypto, other cryptocurrencies, which is the same thing that we're seeing RFK doing right now, it's not good news. It just shows that he's not sophisticated, doesn't get Bitcoin. Probably someone told him that this is a good thing, so he was trying to be on the good side of it for a while until, you know, the real face was revealed. But so you're asking what's happening in Israel in terms of CBDC adoption? So in Israel, the central bank of Israel is quite advanced with its planning and design stage of the different projects and pilot projects that are happening. There is a very close collaboration between the Bank of International Settlements and Israel Central Bank. In fact, there was an event that I was present in here in Tel Aviv about 6 months ago, that was held in the stock exchange, the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, with the BIS and the Israeli Central Bank, where they introduced one of their successful projects called the Sellout project. It's a CBDC project, and they even showed a demo. It's a retail CBDC, so you could actually see what the demo, what the app's going to look like and what the user is going to experience. And to be honest, it was a very boring demo, 25 minutes. I have it all on my YouTube, but you know, it's all there and the evidence is there. And basically every white paper or document that the central bank is issuing here in Israel about CBDC, I'm taking that, digesting it, and reporting about it. What you can learn from the advancement of CBDC in Israel by the central bank is that Israel is admitting that CBDC is going to introduce different limits. For example, limits on the balance that users are allowed to hold in the digital shekel. They are basically saying that you will be able to continue using all of your existing payment methods, like your payment apps or, you know, watch, credit card, or whatever. They'll simply try and replace the infrastructure in the background so that for the end user, it's as transparent as possible, and they don't have to worry about that. They also admitted in the past that the first sector that will start using CBDC will be the public sector, with hundreds of thousands of people that belong to the public sector in Israel. They will receive their salaries on CBDCs.
Wow.
That would be like the first stage of adoption, right? There is a whole document about adoption of like they're already introducing the go-to-market strategy basically, and showing you how they are planning the adoption to happen. So it's by making the public sector adopt it through salaries, through taxation, through fines, you know, payments to the public sector, like your municipality and things like that. You'll have to pay with CBDC.
Wow.
They also talk about coercion of small businesses, similarly to what they've done in COVID with masking. You know, if you were a business owner and people in your shop were not wearing a mask, you would get a fine. So you become the police officer. So it's the same in here with CBDC. You will have to accept CBDC. If you don't, you get a fine, you know. So they're doing like the same tactics as in COVID. Basically, the first time now that they launched a new document, so in that document for the first time, they are saying that the system will support the possibility of applying interest on the digital shekel, which again, it's not a surprise. It just goes to show how this is fiat on steroids. It's basically everything that fiat is, plus a lot more bad features for us citizens. And in Israel, there's also a news about a new stablecoin that is being designed. It's called BILS, B-I-L-S. And basically, some of the companies that are working on these stable coins are also some of the companies that have been working on one of the projects, the pilot projects for CBDC with the central banks. So, you know, the funny thing is seeing how much crypto, most of the big crypto projects are getting closer and closer to the establishment and the banks and the governments, and how much Bitcoin is staying detached from it and can never go close to, you know what I mean? Yeah, you may have institutional investors coming into the party because they can't ignore it anymore, but there's no way that they can try and, you know, take control over it. So in Israel, we're quite advanced. The latest timeline was talking about December 2024 for a technical design document for the digital shekel to be published. So we have another 6, 7, 8 months or so until we see the actual design of the system. And I think the implementation will start soon after with like a group of partnerships with the private sector that they're already working on. Mind you, none of the, I mean, hardly any of the public is aware here in Israel of what is CBDC.
Yeah,
They don't know what CBDC is.
but of course
Nobody's talking about it.
it'll be marketed well, won't it, as you know,
Of
something
course.
that will benefit the citizens of Israel in the same way
Sure.
as Netanyahu negotiated, you know, a wonderful deal with Pfizer to make Israel essentially a laboratory for the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I tweeted today this video reminder of Benjamin Netanyahu talking on the WEF Davos platform about the rollout of the vaccines in Israel in 2021, and being so proud of the deal that he struck with Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, and how basically his selling point for the deal was that Israel will be the world's laboratory. And so basically you're selling off the data of your citizens because you don't see them as people anymore. They're just data points, right? As Yuval Noah Harari says. And so we're all data points. We've been sold off to Pfizer once, and I was claiming that if you didn't spot the sellout in 2021 or 22, you may have felt the sellout again on October 7th. Because we're definitely a nation that is continued to be sold off to the highest bidder like a scapegoat, you know. And I wouldn't go as far as, you know, back in history, but I think the Jewish people and the Israeli people have a very special role to play in being victims. And very often, I don't like that, right? And I don't feel like a victim, but very often the Jewish people and the Israeli people take on that role and roll with it without resisting it, without objecting, without basically saying enough, like I'm not anyone's victim and I won't be sold again, you know? So yeah, it's quite dire, and Benjamin Netanyahu is definitely a character that would do almost anything to benefit glory.
Yeah, because he was up for a number of corruption charges as well, wasn't he,
Yeah,
prior to October 7th?
A few open cases for Benjamin Netanyahu for the past few years now. But obviously, you know, nothing changes the reality that he's still in power and that he's going to probably prolong this war as much as he can to stay in power. And I mean, this is just my opinion, right? But to basically hold on to his seat, because he knows that once he's off this seat, there's a good probability he'll be in jail. or
Mm.
I don't know what's going to happen to him. But the levels of rage and anger towards this guy are very high. Now, I think I just want to add one more sentence before we move
Yeah,
on, but it's just really important to remember that while he is running the state, he is still not the only one that is in charge, and he's also probably being puppeted by other powers that be. And there are many, many other people that are responsible for what is happening right now and what has happened on October 7th, and they need to be prosecuted as well. They need to be investigated and prosecuted, in my view. And no one of them has resigned or has moved out. They're all in place still. This is like 5, 6 months after.
I know it's remarkable because
It's remarkable.
it was clear, and you were right at the forefront of that, of making people aware. I think your tweets were literally, I don't know how many millions
Millions of
of
people
views you
saw
had,
that.
but drawing attention to the culpability, the fact that that border, one of the most defended borders on earth, was essentially left open. It was really quite remarkable, regardless of your opinion. Even if those diehard supporters of anything the Israeli government does surely had to question how that happened, what the background was to it, why for so many hours people that the border was left undefended, and how it happened that people with access to very little could penetrate such a fortress, is astonishing. But I just wanted to say well done you for raising it, and I know it had a ripple effect, across the, if you like, the freedom community, asking why it was that these things were happening, and the community, you said, it bifurcated over Israel as well. A lot of people overlooked what happened during the COVID period by the Israeli government, and were willing to accept without any question Netanyahu's line. I found that absolutely astonishing. I'm sure you did too.
I did too, and I was actually, as much as my information went viral during this period, I also was attacked by people that told me that I am risking their safety here in Israel because of me saying what I'm saying about the government. And I told them, what's new? I'm just being consistent. I was criticizing the government before. I'm continuing to criticize the government now. There is no difference. The only difference is you were maybe brave enough to say what you say and do what you did during COVID and criticize the government. I have criticized them then. I continue to criticize them now. It can't be that during COVID that sold you out, and you clearly saw that and you understood that. But now October 7th came. No, they were fine. It was just a failure. It's like the stars aligned to create this magnificent event that could have happened without the government having any influence on that, any maybe connection to it. Yeah, you're very naive. So I was heavily attacked by those people that couldn't, their cognitive dissonance couldn't hold a reality in which their government and their country has actually betrayed them, right? And I don't believe the government for a long time now. So for me, it's like a given. Can I add one more detail about
Please
Ripple?
do.
Yeah, that we mentioned before, because I think that's also an interesting angle to consider. The fact that Ripple has an open legal battle with the SEC, or maybe it ended already, but they had a very strong legal battle with the SEC in the US concerning the XRP cryptocurrency. Basically, how I see it is engaging in such legal disputes inevitably positions Ripple in a scenario where maintaining a positive relationship with institutions like the SEC or the government of the US becomes crucial. Like, they have to be on their good books, on their good side, because if they don't, they're going to fuck them over in court.
Hmm.
And so consequently, for me, it's no surprise that Ripple prioritizes governments and central banks and financial institutions as primary target audiences in their market strategy. It's like, yeah, we've got to be on your good books because you guys are chasing us. And this is a massive difference between crypto and Bitcoin. Crypto companies can be chased and abused by the governments and the institutions, while Bitcoin cannot. Who are they
Hmm.
going to prosecute? Satoshi? Who, like, who?
Yeah.
And so they can be manipulated. And I think Ripple is one of those that is being manipulated.
Yeah, I think if you believe, I'm actually reading The Sovereign Individual for the first time at the minute. And, well, clearly it was very prescient. It was written in what, 1997, interestingly, by Jacob Rees-Mogg's father, or jointly authored. But one of the points it makes is that as the digital era takes hold, one of the consequences, which governments don't have any control over, is increasingly the primacy of the individual. Individuals don't need to be tied to nation states, and they don't really need to avail of the services of government. But it looks like there are certain corporations who are joined at the hip with government, and the fact that cryptocurrency companies have conjoined with government would indicate that they're part of the problem. I've talked and interviewed lots of interviews recently about this corporatist angle to all of this. But it does feel like the death throes of what we used to call democracy. There's no such thing as democracy any longer. All we have is big state, and that seems to be particularly the case in Israel as well.
For sure. I think it boils down to the lack of education, financial education for people. The fact that people don't understand what money is and how it works, to me indicates that they would not even imagine a reality in which the money is not tied to the government or the state. They feel like it's natural, just like the oxygen they breathe. Money is related to the government. I mean, if the central bank is not going to print money, then who's going to print money? Like, what's going to happen? They don't even know what fiat is and how it works. They don't understand that we are living an experiment that did not exist hundreds of years ago. That, this is something new. The whole 1971 till today fiat bubble experiment that is just continuing to blow bubble after bubble, and now we're at the bubble of everything explosion period. They don't get that. So from an historical perspective, there's a lack of knowledge. And if people only understood that money and state do not have to go hand in hand, it's not a given. No, it's not. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be different. They would actually maybe start to be more hopeful and more courageous. Like they would not be so fearful. Maybe they'll start understanding the power of the collective and the power of the mass, the numbers that we have, that the heads of states don't have. You and I both know and both understand that the institution's biggest fear are the citizens.
Absolutely.
They are afraid of us because they understand the mechanism. They know how the system is designed. They know that fiat lives on trust. They know that without our trust, there is nothing. And so they have to keep perpetuating this lie and this matrix system that we live in order for us to buy it and continue to give them that trust. Once people understand how the monetary system works, they don't need to trust anymore, and the system will collapse. And yeah, it will hurt in the short time frame, but it will be so great and liberating in the longer view of things. So,
Yeah.
I think financial literacy and education is so crucial at the moment. And I think that a lot of Bitcoiners in your audience, for example, that are well informed. Most Bitcoiners understand money. They understand the systems behind it because you can't really get Bitcoin without getting money. And so my request or invitation to your audience would be to invest a little bit in educating people, like just giving them information. How does money work? What is the fiat system? What is inflation? What is debt? What is your what's your life? What's the engine behind your life's economy? Questions that people normally don't have time or think of stopping to ask. So
Absolutely. You're absolutely spot on. And Efrat, you've been doing a wonderful job. You're a marketeer and a very good one. And as you say, you're investing that in your own sovereignty these days. And you're doing a wonderful job really proselytizing as an individual on behalf of a wider movement, if I could call it that. But it's not really a movement. It's just a collection of individuals who know that there's something very, very wrong with the system as it is at the minute. And the Bitcoin community is wonderful. I attended a meeting the other evening in Belfast. Meetings that are growing, obviously, as we've gone into a bull market. But they are wonderful. They tend to be critical thinkers. They know that something is fundamentally wrong, and they're investing for their futures and their families' futures, and that's all that can be expected of people, really, in these circumstances. But how do people find out more about you? I know on your Twitter handle you have a list of links to your podcast content and
there's a
so on.
URL there. There's a link to my link tree, which has everything, because as a marketeer, I'm on every platform, including Nostr. Substack is where I write regularly, so you can subscribe to my Substack if you're into emails. Twitter, Telegram. I have a Telegram channel in English and one in Hebrew as well. But I think also it's worth noting for your audience that I'm going to be speaking at BTC Prague in June about CBDCs and a lot of the different updates and, a world of control versus freedom. And then I'm going to be in Palma de Mallorca for another Bitcoin conference, the Crypto Days.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to be in Nashville speaking there as well, and hopefully in El Salvador towards the end of the year for adopting Bitcoin. So I'm going to be speaking at a lot of Bitcoin conferences. So please follow me if you want to join me and say hi and have a chat during those conferences. It would be amazing to meet people face to face. And where else can they follow me? Yeah, all the usual channels. It's just, I must say one last thing. When I started this podcast, I never thought it would take off so well. And before I knew it, there's like 1.5 million views to the 24 episodes that I put out there, which is really fantastic. And then I walk around the corridors of the different Bitcoin conferences, like in Madeira, for example, or in Amsterdam. And people stop me and they go, wow, your podcast is really good. And I go, what, you watch it? You listen? And they go, yeah, it's really good. I said, no, but seriously, you're not just saying that? Because, I see the numbers. I don't know the people that are actually watching. And so for me, it's a number. And when I see a face and someone telling me that they get value out of it, I am so delighted, because I'm only doing that for people. So yeah, if you ever see me, please tell me.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please do subscribe. It's absolutely free to www.thenewera.uk. Or if you're interested more generally in Bitcoin related matters, please subscribe to bitcoinbelfast.com. We publish regular interviews relating to Bitcoin and Bitcoin news, and we plan a major event in Belfast, Northern Ireland in October 2024. Thanks for watching.